Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror TV series named 12 Deadly Days full episodes. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The first episode, titled Haunted House at the End of the Street, begins on a Christmas day when every household was bustling with lively celebrations in Saturn Town. In contrast, an old man's house at the end of the street was much quieter. Wearing a Santa hat, the old man was watching a TV commercial about fir trees all by himself. Two goofy young men appeared on the screen, claiming to be ghost hunters who had just arrived in town. Their services included dealing with goblins, ghosts, and even rats. The old man cursed the frauds and turned off the TV. As soon as he left his seat, a blurry figure of a female ghost appeared behind him. Outside the door, three red-hooded figures sang a creepy song. The old man greeted them and closed the door. Walking down a dark corridor, he noticed that his bedroom wall was covered in striking bloodstains, saying the most wonderful day of the year had arrived. The scene shifted to the ghost-hunting brothers, Mac and Miles, from the TV commercial. They were worried about their overdue rent for the past 3 months. So far, they had performed 62 ceremonies but had never encountered a real ghost. They had been getting by with their tricks and illusions. Mac was actually an ordinary person, but Miles had genuine psychic abilities. Just as they were about to go bankrupt, they received a phone call from the old man who had encountered a ghost earlier. The brothers drove to the old man's residence. Upon arrival, Miles saw a woman's figure in the window. She emitted a chicken voice, warning the brothers to leave immediately. But being broke, the brothers were not afraid of a real ghost. The old man quickly welcomed the two men into his house. A snow globe was missing from the bookshelf, which the old man explained had been accidentally smashed. He mentioned that the house experienced ghostly activity every Christmas, but this was the first time bloodstains had appeared. As the brothers shared their knowledge about ghosts, they said they sensed that this ghost was particularly tricky and might even cost them their lives. So they demanded additional payment. Once the price was agreed upon, the brothers began their work. Miles attempted to sense the ghostly presence in the house. After a brief convulsion, he revealed a sinister smile and said there was more than one ghost. Miles sensed 3 ghosts, a woman who died in the past and 2 men who would die in the future, hinting that 2 men would soon die here. Miles sensed that the woman who died in the past was named Belle. Upon hearing this name, the old man became enraged and tried to kick the brothers out. But the ghosts had sealed all exits and no one could leave. Even calling the police was futile, as the ghosts had smashed all the phones. Years had passed, and it seemed that the ghost Belle was determined to settle things today. Miles sensed that her energy was particularly strong. The old man stammered, claiming he didn't know Belle. Fortunately, Mac had brought a detector to communicate with ghosts. The old man suggested taking Miles to the room with the most intense haunting. As they were leaving, Miles reminded Mac to be careful. The old man led Miles to a locked room. Inside was an ancient, exquisite box. Before Miles could ask, the old man closed the door and locked him in. The box slowly opened, revealing the missing crystal ball from the bookshelf. By touching the crystal ball, Miles finally learned about Belle's past. She and the man had been lovers. The greedy old man had killed Belle with the crystal ball to steal her money. Meanwhile, downstairs, Mac was communicating with the ghost Belle. Belle tried to warn Mac to be careful, but it was too late. The old man killed Mac with the crystal ball. Minutes later, Mac's spirit appeared behind Miles. As it turned out, Mac was one of the ghosts from the future that Miles had sensed. But there were supposed to be 2 ghosts from the future. Could the other one be Miles? Just then, the old man charged in with a knife and cornered Miles. Just then, a goose voice came from behind. It was the old man's ghost, warning him that if he didn't stop, he would become the 3rd ghost in the house. In the end, the old man didn't heed his own bullshit and fell heavily down the stairs. The ghost Belle pushed over a bookshelf, delivering a fatal blow to the old man. This job didn't earn the 2 brothers a single penny, and they even lost a partner. But Miles, with his psychic abilities, could still communicate with Mac's ghost. From then on, they continued their ghost-catching business, catching ghosts when there were ghosts, and Mac could help with creating illusions when there were none. On their way back, Miles stopped by a tree shop and bought a small Christmas tree. He shook hands with the enthusiastic owner and bid him farewell. Miles sensed that the owner's days were numbered, so he advised him to close early and rest. Just as Miles drove away, something rushed out from the woods and attacked the owner. The owner tried to escape the monster's attack and flee back to his house, but he didn't have the strength. In the end, he became the monster's meal. This marks the beginning of the 2nd episode, titled The Killer Furs. A few days later, the tree shop owner's daughter, Willow, returned to her hometown and was picked up by her long-lost uncle. The police attributed her father's death to a ruthless tree thief. Due to flight arrangements, Willow didn't make it to her father's funeral. Strangely, just a few days after her father's death, the number of fir trees in the woods doubled. Willow was an environmentalist, which caused her relationship with her logging father to become very tense. In her father's camper, there were still pictures of her from the past. It was evident that her father had missed her in the days she was gone. After sorting out her father's belongings, Willow returned to the fir forest. She revisited the old place and found the axe her father used to chop trees. A woman wearing a cape suddenly appeared at the end of the woods. Willow chased the woman's figure through a few trees and found herself in another midnight forest. This place was filled with the piercing screams of women. Sensing something was wrong, Willow hastily turned back to escape. After taking a few steps, she returned to her own world, where the sun was shining brightly, as if the previous scene had been just a hallucination. One deep night, Willow, who was fast asleep like a pig, was awakened by the sound of a passing pickup truck. She looked outside and saw two tree thieves. They must have been the ones who killed her father. Thinking this, Willow called the police. Before she could speak, she was shocked to see the two tree thieves were dragged away by a strange creature in the woods, and blood splattered everywhere. According to the autopsy report, the bodies of the thieves were drained of blood. Since the perpetrator was not caught, the police could only attribute their deaths to a wild animal attack once again. As Willow was a witness, the police asked her not to leave Saturntown for the time being. With nowhere else to go, Willow sought refuge with her uncle. She began browsing her father's books and found a photo of her father with the mysterious cloaked woman she had encountered earlier. Willow speculated that this woman might be the one who killed her father. To find the truth, Willow and her uncle returned to her father's tree shop. There, they ran into a police officer guarding the crime scene. Just as the officer was about to question them, the same mysterious woman appeared in the woods again. The three rushed into the forest to pursue her. After passing through several trees with her uncle, they entered the eerie midnight forest. The trees were dense and lush, and following the screams, they found the woman beneath a massive tree, feeding at the officer's blood. Willow and her uncle ran away and hid in her father's camper. Looking out the window, they saw even more trees than before. Her uncle found a legend about the midnight forest in the camper. It was said that the forest was protected by an ancient deity, and its divine trees fed on human blood. Cutting down the divine tree would end it all. The cloaked woman was the deity of the midnight forest. It must have been Willow's logger father who accidentally cut down her tree and brought it here, causing so many disasters. Her uncle suggested cutting down the divine tree, but Willow hesitated because she's an environmentalist. She had to compromise because all the townspeople would die if doing nothing. As her uncle was about to be drained of blood by the deity, Willow picked up the axe and struck the divine tree, chopping it down until the deity turned to ashes. The crisis was averted, and the tree shop returned to its original state. Her uncle suggested they throw the remaining trees into a wood chipper and close the tree shop for peace of mind. Elsewhere in the town, a young man and woman were sitting in a coffee shop chatting away their hormones. The young man complained about how he couldn't stomach human food and seemed quite annoyed with the woman sitting across from him. After venting his frustration, he stormed out, leaving her behind. Within a few steps, he was tackled by two bearded men. As it turns out, the young man was actually an immortal vampire, and they prepared to torture him, beginning the third episode, Love Bites. In a dark slaughterhouse, the vampire was restrained by the three strong men. Instead of immediately taking action, they called for Sammy, who had been cowering outside. This family turned out to be a group of vampire hunters, each skilled in their craft, dedicated to killing every vampire in the world. However, Sammy was a novice with zero accomplishments to his name. Though weak and inexperienced, he was expected to be the family's successor. To train him, his brothers encouraged Sammy to personally kill the recently captured vampire. Sammy knew he couldn't escape this time, so he reluctantly took the wooden hammer and slowly approached the vampire. Just as he raised the hammer to strike its chest, terror overcame him and he threw up. His brothers burst into laughter at the sight, and even the vampire was dumbfounded. Only their father looked on disappointedly. Later in the kitchen, their father scolded Sammy. Their grandfather would be home in a few days, and the selection for the successor would officially begin. Sammy, unable to even get his first kill, wasn't qualified to participate. Regardless, his father urged him to be brave and kill a vampire. As soon as the words left his mouth, Sammy was pushed back into the slaughterhouse. However, this time, his brothers had already killed the vampire ahead of him. Hearing the vampire's miserable screams, Sammy felt a mix of emotions and realized he couldn't accept his family's legacy. On a Christmas Eve night, Sammy went to a cafe to clear his mind. While admiring an artist's paintings, he met a girl named Lizzie. Their relationship deepened as they spent time together. However, during their dates, Sammy noticed a strange phenomenon. Lizzie would often stare at his neck unintentionally. He didn't think much of it until one day, as they wrestled their tongues under a brightly lit Christmas tree. Sammy was horrified to discover Lizzie had no reflection. Realizing she was a vampire, he let go of her and suggested they break up. Then he fled, utterly embarrassed. Lizzie had no idea that the hanging ornament behind her had already revealed her true identity. She thought Sammy had been annoyed by her poor kissing skill. Unwilling to let it end like this, she relied on her vampire senses to track down Sammy's house. Meanwhile, at Sammy's home, his grandfather and father were troubled by the lack of women in the family and worried about the continuation of their bloodline. When they saw Lizzie, a lovely girl showing up at their door specifically for Sammy, his father's eyes lit up, and he immediately invited her in. As they began to have fun together, both the grandfather and father praised her, ignoring Sammy's situation. They ordered Sammy to marry Lizzie, ensuring the family's prosperity. Having a great time, Lizzie went to the bathroom and accidentally discovered a hidden room next door. She was shocked to see torture instruments hung on the walls, fresh blood on the floor, and various hunting weapons on the table. It was obvious she was now in a vampire hunter's home. Just then, Sammy appeared behind her. Lizzie questioned if this was all a trap set by the hunters. Sammy denied it, claiming he truly loved her and was worried her identity would be exposed. He planned to help her escape immediately. However, before they could leave, the grandfather, reluctant to part with Lizzie, gave her a farewell hug. This embrace made Lizzie scream in pain as a burning crucifix pierced her chest. Everyone was dumbfounded and immediately subdued her. Just as the grandfather prepared to stake her, Sammy snatched the weapon and drove everyone away, claiming he would handle everything himself. Lizzie's screams could be heard from the slaughterhouse. Believing Sammy had finished the job, the grandfather and father prepared to enter and burn the body. But they saw Lizzie perched on the ceiling like a giant spider. In an instant, she revealed her terrifying fangs. Caught off guard, the brothers and father were brutally killed by Lizzie, and the grandfather was stabbed to death by Sammy. It was incredible. Sammy had annihilated his entire family for a woman. Afraid, Sammy called out Lizzie's name. The now possessed Lizzie was seeing red and didn't care who he was, grabbing Sammy and pinning him to the ground. Just as she was about to bite through his neck, Sammy managed to persuade her to stop. This brought Lizzie back to her senses, and the two shared a passionate kiss. Afterward, Sammy and Lizzie got married. One day, while kissing in their car for too long, they forgot to drive and angered another driver, Gabe, who happened to pass by. Lizzie bared her fangs at him, and Gabe couldn't help but curse at the departing couple. And so they drove on, not knowing how long they had been traveling. Gabe, unable to wake the sleeping Mike, reached down to grab a drink to quench his unbearable thirst. Unexpectedly, a blinding red light suddenly appeared before their eyes, followed by a deafening crash and beginning the fourth episode, Reindeer Games. The atmosphere became tense after the collision. Mike and Gabe hurriedly got out of the car, and upon investigating with a flashlight, they found their vehicle was completely broken down. Gabe sighed in frustration, but they were shocked to discover that they struck a massive Christmas reindeer. The reindeer was taking its last breaths, and its bright nose gradually dimmed like a light bulb, before finally being extinguished with its death. Gabe believed they had brought terrible misfortune upon themselves. Legend had it that killing a Christmas reindeer would bring bad luck. However, Mike didn't think much of it. It was just an ordinary wild animal after all. Gabe retorted that he had never seen a wild animal with a light bulb for a nose. Regardless, they had to focus on escaping. As it turned out, Gabe and Mike were wanted jewel thieves, evading the police and two other accomplices they had crossed. To save time, they dragged the reindeer's body to the side of the road and continued driving, planning to pick up a new car at Gabe's house. Gabe's mother, who was a medium and hadn't seen her son in a long time, was overjoyed, but she had no idea Gabe was a theft and believed her son was a busy astronaut. With fleeing on his mind, Gabe hastily made small talk with her before rushing to the backyard to get the car. Just as he and Mike were about to drive away, a blonde woman appeared in front of the car with a flash of the headlights. She was an elf from the North Pole. With a snap of her fingers, she stopped the car. The elf told Gabe that he had just killed Santa's favorite reindeer, and so he would soon become a reindeer to replace it. Upon hearing this, Gabe removed his hat, finding 2 antlers growing from his head. The elf grinned and said that unless the reindeer came back to life, he would turn into one by the next morning. Gabe was dumbfounded. He felt his head start to ache and his bones breaking inside him. Meanwhile, his mother remained calm. She instructed Gabe to carry the reindeer's body into the house, and she would use her spiritual powers to revive it. However, Gabe didn't move, instead scolding her for meddling. He accused her of taking herself too seriously as a medium. These words brought tears to her eyes. She suddenly slapped a fly out of the air, then chanted a few words. Within seconds, the fly miraculously came back to life. Gabe was stunned by the scene. If only he knew his mom was so powerful, he wouldn't have turned to robbery. Gabe and Mike immediately went to the scene of the accident and dragged the reindeer's body back. During this process, Gabe had already started to transform into a grotesque and terrifying creature, neither human nor ghost. It was clear that there wasn't much time left for him. Everything was prepared, and his mother had set up an altar outside the house. However, when she said that the resurrection might take an entire night, Mike became furious. Staying there for a whole night would be like handing themselves over to the police on a silver platter. He said that he wouldn't wait any longer and wanted to leave with the stolen goods right away. Upon hearing the word stolen goods, Gabe's mother was taken aback. Seeing her confusion, Mike revealed that he and her son were not great astronauts, but rather fugitives on the run. However, she refused to believe this and insisted that Gabe was an astronaut, until Gabe confessed that he was indeed a thief, and he had been involved in a life of crime since he grew up, continuously making mistakes such as stealing and drug trafficking. Heartbroken, his mother cried in tears. However, at this moment, nothing was more important than restoring Gabe to normal. During the ceremony, the incantations were chanted loudly and the light on the reindeer's nose began to flicker again. Gabe gradually returned to his human form, but just then, a gun was pressed against his mother's head. It was their 2 accomplices who had caught up with them. After robbing the jewelry store, Mike and Gabe had taken their share as well. The accomplice viciously shot at Gabe, who managed to dodge the bullet by falling to the ground. The shot hit a candle on the altar, causing everything to collapse, and the ceremony was forcibly terminated, causing Gabe to transform even more into a reindeer. To protect his mother, he charged forward and impaled the 2 accomplices with his antlers. Laughter from Santa Claus echoed in the sky. His mother was relieved that her good-for-nothing son had made something of himself and told Gabe she would see him on Christmas Eve. She watched the reindeer Gabe distance itself from her, running across the vast sky, becoming an astronaut in Jesus' heaven. The scene shifts to a space center, where they detected an unidentified object flying above the Saturn town. Surprisingly, it seemed to be a carbon-based life form. This cues the 5th episode, Coffee Cups. In the coffee shop, Lena and Emily were waiters, and they got along really well. They often joked together about the peculiar customers who frequented the place, each one with an inscrutable taste. Just as they were talking about the strangest customer, Nerd walked in. This person never ordered coffee at the cafe, only hot water, and babbled about the government's sinister plot to poison genetically modified coffee beans and control the poor. As the coffee shop closed for the night, Emily was joking with a male waiter nearby, while Lena went to remove the sign hanging in the window. The moment she took it down, a sinister face appeared outside the window. Caught off guard, Lena let out a scream and told the man that the cafe was already closed. However, the man remained silent, and a few seconds later, a malicious smile spread across his face. He raised the coffee cup in his hand, draining it in one gulp. Emily recognized the coffee brand